In this video, I want to pick up where the last episode ended, where I did a regex extract on this table, and I used the extract function, not the ExtractAll. This video will use the ExtractAll function, because here in my last row, I actually have two matches, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, but extract only gives me the first value. And I'm also going to show an issue with the run Python script window. The actual code is almost the same. I'm going to start out by making a new data frame just to show a problem with this window and the function, which is going to equal the data set, because the data set is equal to my previous step. I want to go into the text string column and use the string function ExtractAll. And then because I'm using regex, I want to use a raw string, meaning it should interpret backslashes as actual backslashes and not, for instance, \n as a new line. And I want my regex to be the \t curly bracket 3 curly bracket. And I have to put this in parentheses, which makes a capture group. And this is just how the ExtractAll function works. You need your regex code to be a capture group, so it needs to be inside parentheses. Then I can close my parentheses. And I then get a new data frame, which we can see, well, actually it's a series, but we can see there's a problem here. In rows where I don't get a match, those are filtered out. And in that last row where I actually had two matches, it looks like I have two separate rows, but that's not actually what happens. If I go into Visual Studio Code, and I've just loaded in my data frame, if I then copy in the same code, and then I print that, we can see that actually I get more information. I have an index here. And it's not even just an index, it's a multi-index. And if I actually try to both print my dataset, and here we can see that Python interprets the \n as a new line character, in other words, a line break. We can see I get an index for free when I make a data frame. And when I then use my ExtractAll function, I get not just the original index, but also a second level of index. And we can see here for the zeros and first row, I don't have a match. For my second and third, I have one match. And then for my fourth row, I have two matches. And that's what this second level is. So that's called a multi-index. And that's something we have to deal with. It took me a while to figure out because we don't see the index when we print the data frame inside Power Query. So that's a big weakness. I'd recommend you make the code in Visual Studio Code or whatever you want to use. You also get autocomplete and IntelliSense for Python. You don't get that inside the Run Python script window. In any case, this guy, CBean, found the solution for me because I have to convert this into an actual column inside of my data frame. And what he suggested is that I can do the normal setup to create a new column, which is to say the data frame new column equals data frame old column, apply the ExtractAll function. Then in order to convert this multi-index back into one index, I can do a group by on level 0. That's then the first index, which matches my row index. And then I actually have to deal with multiple matches, which I can do with an aggregate function saying that I want to join. And in my case, I want to join with a comma. But if I simply copy that, and then I can go back and say I want to take my dataset and add a new column called new, which will then equal my dataset text string. Use a string function that is ExtractAll, again a raw string for \d3, and that needed to be in a capture group, meaning normal parentheses, and then group by level 0, and then aggregate. And actually I just want to show what happens if we do it without the final aggregate, if it even allows me. Yeah, because it doesn't match the index. And that's because in that, if I go back and I show the data set, I only have 3 indexes, which doesn't match my original data set, which has 5, because it has 5 rows. And that's because the first 2 rows have nulls for the regex, and I need to deal with that. But I can deal with that by adding the aggregate function. As mentioned, I want that to be a comma, and then .join to do text join. That's because my values are text, and that's why I want to use the .join function. And now I can print it. Because now there's a match, because I can see that 2, 0 then becomes 2, 4, 0 and 4, 1 then get grouped into one group. And then upon that group, I aggregate by adding a comma between my values. And then we end up with NaN or null, and that's exactly what I want. And I can then copy that code because I actually only need that one line, meaning I can go back here and add that. Another issue with Python inside Power Query is that when I add a column, I manipulate the original dataset variable, which means I can see inside the code that I'd start out with dataset equals dataset, and then I change dataset to be equal to a new version of itself, which has a new column, which means I can't really chronologically follow what happens in my code. which is one of many reasons why I'd recommend doing the code inside your IDE and then copying the result into Power Query. Because it looks like I only have 2 variables, when in reality I actually have 3, the original dataset and then the altered dataset. But in any case, that solves what I want. Then I can extract it like normal, and then it adds change type. And actually I wanted to show that last thing is that pandas is American, even though I haven't actually asked for this, interpreting the regex match as a number. It did so, and actually I'm a bit confused because it says it's a string. I would assume the output of a string function is a string, but apparently it's a number. I don't know if that's a pandas thing or a Power Query thing. I can then go in and extract text before delimiter, the dot, and then I get my actual text. And that's actually everything. So, yep.